Live from Miami, Florida.
I am Linda.
And I am Bella.
And this is our podcast, Mostly Peaceful Latinas, where every week we will discuss current events, politics, pop culture,
and everything else related to the state of the clown world.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 2 of Mostly Peaceful Latinas podcast. And today's episode, we're going to talk about groomers. So everything to do about groomers.
We
okay,
need 5
groomer.
Episodes to talk about groomers.
We would be here forever. We had to talk about every single groomer in the United States and inside of the White House and everywhere else.
Media and Hollywood and our schools, just about everywhere. But we're going to dedicate an hour of our time
to groomers.
To focusing on the absolute absurdity of the state of groomers right now with the passing of the anti-groomer bill, because that's what I'm going to call it permanently.
So I think it's funny that the left is actually really pissed off at the term groomer. Like, they're having a very hard time. If you Google right now, Republican groomers, just as like the search engine optimization terms, you're going to see how they have all these headlines of like
the usual suspects.
Why Republicans are using the term groomers. If you don't agree with Republicans, then you're not a groomer. It's like, dude, we went through this for years. When you guys called us racist, if we didn't agree with everything that you said, racist, bigot, Nazi. So now we're going to
turn on them.
Right. Now it's turned on them and they don't like it. It's absolutely hilarious. I've also seen headlines of Republicans, weak Republicans per usual, that are saying, we shouldn't use the term groomer. That's going to take away from the conversations. Like, no, we finally have momentum. We have these people's attention. They're pissed off. They're getting a taste of their own medicine. So we're going to keep the momentum going with this groomer thing and make sure that people know that it's beyond this recent conversation of the fake
the fake don't say gay bill, which we're not going to call it that. That's the last time we're going to say that. Right. It's called the anti-groomer bill.
So with that being said, do you want to explain to people?
Yeah, let's start off by discussing basically this, the HB 1557, which has caused the hysteria amongst the pedos amongst us, right? So first off, don't say gay. Nowhere on the bill does it say.
It's a propaganda term.
Absolute propaganda.
Right.
So let's start off with the basic aspects of the bill, right? So number one, there's already existing Florida law called FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act.
Okay.
This Floridian law that already exists basically gives parents full access to student records. Anything that's going on in students while they're in school is supposed to be kept in a permanent record that parents then have every right to ask for, K through 12. What's happening is that local schools or school districts are enacting procedures on dealing with gender, on dealing with gender that would allow schools to keep secret so that they don't out kids. Let's start off with the basics. You and I have both talked about this. We agree that this bill is weak. Why?
It's very weak.
It only protects children in grades K through third grade. So we're talking up to 6-year-olds, right? Like 6-year-olds in the third grade.
I think when you start 4th grade, you're actually an 8-year-old or something
6,
like that.
7, let's just say. So these people are in hysterics over not being able to talk about gender and sex to 6-year-olds, to literal underage children. So the first aspect is that the schools are not allowed to enact procedures that would allow for secrecy, if you will. The second part of the bill is exactly that there cannot be no secrets between teachers and students when it comes to conversations regarding gender studies and sex and so on and so forth. So first part is you can enact procedures that are going to go against FERPA law already standing in the state of Florida. The second part is that teachers cannot have secret conversations with students, again, 6-year-olds. The third part is that teachers cannot teach sex ed to K through 6th grade or gender studies. And the fourth part of the bill basically gives parents the authority to sue the school district if these laws are not followed.
Right. And that's the thing about Republicans, and it's so frustrating seeing so many people cheer on this bill. Right? It's like, well, it's a start. Why is it such a weak start? We go over this every single time why is it 4th grade? So then immediately you're protected to third grade, and then after that you get all this indoctrination from teachers. This is a big problem with Republicans, that they just settle for breadcrumbs. People should have been blowing up all Florida legislators and saying, hey, pass this all the way to 12th grade. Like, they're already going to call you a homophobe. They're already going to call you a bigot. They're already going to call you a transphobe. It doesn't matter what balance you find. It doesn't matter what you do. They're still going to call you these names. You're still going to be the bad person. You might as well just be the bad person.
All the way, because that's the problem. That the bill was introduced all the way to third grade because you want to be rational and you want to be moderate. And I've said this so many times: you do not fight extremism with moderation.
With moderation,
it just doesn't work. You're not going to be able to counteract the absolute absurdity of wanting to talk to 5-year-olds about sex when they should be learning to color within the lines. Like they're not even studying math at that point.
Here's something that I saw DC Drano post, like someone's tweet, I think he like reposted it, that said, when I was growing up, I didn't know if my teachers were married. I didn't, much less if they were like gay or bisexual or lesbian. And it's so true. I was thinking about it the other day, and I think I was with you last Sunday when I said, I can't remember when any teacher of mine ever said, I'm married. Like, I don't even
spoke about their personal lives. I don't remember knowing my teacher's first names.
I don't remember even ever thinking to myself, that teacher has no kids or 5 kids, or that teacher's a lesbian, or this one's gay. Like, we just never knew anything. It was Mr. Stewart and Mrs. whatever, and that was it.
Even in high school, where you kind of developed more personal relationships with your teachers because there was more of that guidance factor. There was still such a strict separation between what was appropriate and what wasn't. And to see people know that this isn't right. I think that this is why it's backfired, because when you are talking about only kindergarten to third graders, like, how can you be dying on this hill?
Well, it's because they are groomers.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. They want to groom
and the podcast right now.
They want to groom your children into this ideology, and they keep fighting about it. And it's like, if people don't fight this back, that we're here now because people haven't fought back, because people haven't cared, because no one shows up to the school board meetings, because no one's looking at the curriculum, because no one cares. So now it's like, now it's the time to fight back, but then people are scared to be called
homophobic or at this point, or whatever it is.
So, with that being said, I just want to pull up really quickly this image by the Miami New Times. So for those of you who are not from
Are they going to ban our podcast for pulling that up?
Well, maybe. You never know with these commies.
Mostly peaceful.
So this is the current Pride edition cover from the Miami New Times. It's a local newspaper, obviously very liberal. We've had our conversations with them before, but this is what they decided to put in the cover of the Miami New Times, which is this man in some sort of BDSM like portrait.
We have a gag ball, ladies and gentlemen.
And then it says, say gay. It's like, you're literally proving the point of the bill. You doing this is exactly why we have to take these measures and prevent kids from going down this pathway. Does that make any sense?
Of course it does. And, knowing what it is that you and I know with our involvement in, the fight against the local Department of Education, and seeing how we have teachers being moved around from school to school that have had rape allegations, misconduct allegations made against them, how these things are kept secret, how then the school district goes out of their way when these teachers are found out to pay out settlements and then have victims sign orders to keep that silent. NDAs to keep this silent. Like, what is the push to want to keep secrets from the parents? And I think that that's the most disturbing part. It's not even that you want to talk about sex or gender studies. It's the idea that you feel compelled to think that you have the right as a teacher to have those conversations with minors in private.
Why is that?
And because we've got an entire system.
I want to get into that.
Yeah.
I want to let you finish. I'm going to let you finish.
I'm going to let you finish.
But
they we know that this is something that they've been doing. I'm not quite sure where the point that you're going to, but we were talking about it before we even got started on the podcast, that Joe Biden tried to repeal a procedures put in place by the Trump White House that would basically that would basically require all accusations, whether they were proven true or not, whether the person ended up retiring or terminating their employment after, to still be documented. Well, the Biden campaign has now said he wants to repeal that because it's too much data upkeeping.
Right, that's what they do. That's the same thing that they did when they repealed certain measures to protect illegal children coming from the border, that they're like, oh, we don't need all these procedures. Like, we'll just hand them off to like whoever comes gets them. It's like, we went through this during Obama, 90,000 kids ended up being trafficked. Like, there's like this weird thing with children, and it's like,
but we're not allowed to talk about it.
We're not allowed to talk about it. It makes us look like the conspiracy crazy people. But the reality is that these things are legislation, right? Like, we're not making this up. And this is what this is now that they said that we're going to repeal this.
Yeah, this happened mid last year that Joe Biden basically said that he was going to repeal it. And here's the part, because another thing that we already know, it's being led by the teachers union. What do the teachers union
comes down to the teachers union?
Everything comes down to the teachers union.
And it's funny because, you know, right now, the last 3 days, you know, sorry to cut you off, but the last 3 days, there's been a headline going around saying that what you've explained before, which is that the teachers union basically had a say in terms of like the guidelines for schools of the CDC. So the teachers union, who is not a science body or scientific body,
they're not even a governmental body.
They're literally nothing, right? They were the people influencing the CDC with these mandates, or what are they called?
What it did was that they were fighting for school guidelines. Right. But by fighting for the school guidelines, they were affecting all indoor guidelines that we dealt with during COVID.
This is how much power the teachers unions have.
What's happening is
so much power.
That the teachers union are being used as an extended arm of the federal government in order to be able to push whatever federal ideology exists into local territory by then having this clearly partisan organization that's everywhere, because the teachers union is everywhere, basically influencing what the kids are being taught. Now we know that it's even going as far as influencing the CDC. They've got influence over voting laws. I mean, the most outlandish things that you're like, why are teachers even involved in that?
It's very strange.
The teachers union has a hand in it. You know, I remember a few years ago, I want to say it was in 2020, I posted a video that went viral. It was a video of a troll doll that had a button then in the private area, and when you touched it, it was just really inappropriate. The doll would like laugh and haha and hee hee.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I got dragged by the media for calling it grooming. It's like, this is a form of grooming. You're giving a child a toy where they are experiencing joy or pleasure or something from stimulation to what clearly coincides with anatomy to a private part, right? To have the media drag you and have you called QAnon and crazy and these people are so extreme. It's not grooming. Yeah. Fast forward. It's not even fast forward. We're talking about less than 2 years later, and this is where we're at. We've got these
but
groomers.
Even now, they still don't think they're groomers, or this is going to lead to the normalization of pedophilia, which is what we've been saying for the past at least 4 years. They're mad. They are attacking anybody who calls them that. And I think it's also ridiculous. One of the things that they keep saying that I think is ridiculous is that the Democrats, and I do a lot of research, you know me, I'll go see what they're saying, like the posts and whatnot. And like, they're like, oh, well, there's no need for this bill because we don't have any proof that these teachers are actually teaching this. Like, this is all an imagination from Republicans that hate, they're homophobic. And I'm like, we have platforms, we have channels like the lips of TikTok. They have like over 300,000 followers on TikTok, and I think like about 50,000 on Instagram, where every single day, multiple times a day, they're posting content of these groomer teachers on TikTok. Their entire classrooms are decorated with the LGBT flag, with the trans flag, and all these other flags that we don't even recognize because every month they come up with a new terminology. Right. They're teaching, this is how you address me. Like, I've seen videos of teachers saying, my teachers didn't know what to call me because I'm a gender fluid pansexual. So I'm zers, like all these weird things. They're like, dude, why do you guys keep saying that it's just Republicans and conservatives making this up when your own teachers are posting this on social media? I mean, and they're showing it off.
They're posting that they're going to continue to engage in this behavior despite whatever laws are passed because of whatever personal conviction they have. And they're going to go around it.
And there's this guy, he's a gay activist on social media. I can't think of the name right now, but him along with some other, LGBT, I guess, influencers have been saying like, well, since conservatives push this bill and like we can't talk about sexuality or gender, then also we can't call mom and dad. We can't say the word boys and girls and like we shouldn't have any gender. Like they're trying to like go around it. Indoctrination, and like, well, look at the bill. And it's like, see, this is the problem because most of us have been very accepting and tolerant of these alternative lifestyles. Most people supported gay marriage.
Right.
I've always said it.
Including Donald Trump.
Right, including Trump. The 1964 Civil Rights Act gives you the right to not be discriminated against you if you are from a different gender, race, whatever. And this includes housing. This includes if you want to open up a bank account, work. I mean, none of your rights are affected because you can't groom little kids anymore. And that's the problem. It's like Disney is saying that, or not just Disney, but they're saying, oh, this is chipping away from like LGBT rights. It's like, what rights? When did we give you the right to groom children?
When did that become a part of?
Can you go get a loan for a home? Can you go get a bank account? Can you go get work? You know what I mean? You can open up. I mean, you can do whatever in this country, but we're just saying there has to be protections because you're actually the minority. This is a big problem. Let's talk about
the irony of it, right? Which is that this is the party that has relabeled our country, the republic, a democracy.
We're not a democracy. This is a constitutional republic.
We don't go based off majority rules. But for a party that loves to act as if the majority does rule, we are bending the knee to a minority
very small minority.
group. I mean, what are we talking?
We're talking about 5%. The LGBT community is 5%, maybe less than 5%. I know trans is less than 1%.
1%. Less than 1%
so
trans.
These are, in corporate, we used to call this alternative lifestyle, right? We did this marketing presentations. We're going to talk about this is what we're doing for the Hispanics, this is what we're doing for the blacks, blah, blah, blah. And this is alternative lifestyle. So you have these alternative lifestyles who have been elevated on this pedestal. And now they think that they're the majority.
Pride.
Right?
That was the trick the whole time. Call it pride.
Right. So they have not been elevated and put on this pedestal where they think that they're the majority and that we have to bow down to whatever they want. And it's like, no, dude, that's not what we that's not what we agreed on.
Well, I mean, biology never agreed on that. Natural law says that we're not indoctrinating people to be hetero. Natural law is
that's another thing that they say, right? I've caught them saying like, oh, wow, you guys, I had it out with some guy in the comment section. He's like, well, you guys are pushing heterosexual propaganda all the time. Like, oh, heterosexual. And I go, there's no such thing as heterosexual propaganda, love. Like, natural law and order says that only an egg and a sperm can procreate. Every single gay person that I know, whether it's my family or friends, came from what? A male and a female. They wouldn't exist without that. So there's a natural law and order. Then all of a sudden they think it's propaganda. It's like, this is not propaganda at all. But you guys want to treat us that way. Don't think that this is not going to take a different course.
Well, we know where this is headed.
They're pushing people to
be less tolerant. Because now you're like, well, all right, tolerant. Shoot. You know how many times I've heard people make the comment like, well, back in the 80s where it's like all we wanted was, LGBT rights to be fair and everybody to get married. Right. It's like, and then you had the extremists in the 80s. They're like, oh, well, before you know it, they're going to want to be marrying kids and they're going to be.
Well, the Christians warned us. And we were the first one. I mean, I literally have been wanting to post this. I've been busy, so I haven't posted, but I wanted to post. Sometimes followers come and they're like, you're not always right. You should apologize. Like, you're not always right. And I'm like, and the other day I thought to myself, I was like, they're right. I'm not always right. I was so wrong when I heard the Christians 10 years ago or whatever say this is not going to stop a gay marriage, this is not going to stop a gay marriage, and we're all like, oh, look at this religious zealots, like they're so religious and they don't care and they're judgmental. And now I'm like, holy shit, they were right. Like it didn't stop a gay marriage, and now it's making people like us who have been tolerant, open, accepting, supported all these things, question and say, did we mess up?
And you know who some of the people that need to be the loudest about this? People within the LGBT community that know that this is not normal.
And we know a lot of people. We know a lot of conservative. LGBT. I wouldn't say conservative because they're not. The Republican LGBT community has been very outspoken in support of DeSantis, in support of the bill, in support of these protections. I talked to Christian Walker. I talked to David the Birthright Patriot. I talked to the Gay Who's Straight. All these people support this law. Many of them think it doesn't go far enough.
Correct.
But the problem is that, of course, the Western media, the liberal media has the loudest voices, which we know they're irrelevant because the media is dying. But it's very unfortunate because they also don't talk about, they'll highlight examples of, well, if the parents don't support the kids transitioning at 10 years old, the kid is going to kill himself. So now the parents like, holy shit, I either give my child this hormone therapy that's life altering or my kid is going to kill himself.
Meanwhile, what are the suicide rates amongst the transitioning community? Isn't it 40%? 40? I think it's like 45.
Well, they blame us.
Yeah.
They blame us. They say, trans people are there's a 40% because they're not accepted. It's like, dude, first of all, they're not even accepting themselves. Let's begin with that.
Let's start with
right. Let's start with they don't accept themselves, right? There's protections for these people. That's why once again I go back to a 1964 Civil Rights Act, right, where they can get homes, they can get a loan, they can get a bank, they can get work, etc. They can't be discriminated against. They don't talk about. I think Amir Odom was posting about it today, when trans women get killed, and it's like, why did they get killed, right? Wow. We're not saying it as an excuse or condoning any sort of violence against anyone.
Absolutely not.
But a lot of times they're either part of, they're prostitutes, sex workers. They show up. The male thinks it's a real, biological woman. It's not.
And then that leads to a confusion, right? Absolutely. Like nobody should be lied to about, if you're going to be engaging in a consensual relationship, then, I understand that now there's an entire, I still can't believe that we're living in times where there's an entire opposition party that believes that you have the right to keep your birth gender a secret from somebody before engaging in a consensual relationship with them. If you were accepting of yourself, and this new version of yourself, there would be no need to lie about it.
Right.
At least that's what my perspective.
Yeah, because there's people that will date you knowing that you're a trans woman or a trans man. Like, look at Blair White.
Absolutely.
She transitioned from a man to a female, and she's, I don't know if she's married or she's engaged to a male, and he knows, and it's whatever. That's their problem.
They have their consensual relationship like adults. I think that the problem comes in the secrecy, right?
Right.
You brought up Disney, and I think that is such an important topic to talk about right now, right? Because conspiracy theorists for a very long time have been called crazy for insinuating that Disney has been working to groom children. Whether it be subliminal messaging inside of movies, or now the push for, what did they say, that 40% of all of their characters were going to be?
They said, so here's a headline that said, Disney goes woke, it pledges to make all children's films basically more gay, ignoring 95% of the population. And they also want to eliminate all mentions of ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls. Like, so now I don't know what gender neutral they're,
when they go to Disney World.
Like, so now once again, we have to bend over and accept this new normal.
Well, we don't have to accept anything, and that's
I've never liked Disney. I'm not a Disney person. I don't care for Disney. Even when I was younger, I was always like, whatever, like the long lines and the heat and stuff like that. Like, I was just like, I don't want to be in this park, so I don't care. It
doesn't make a difference
in my life.
But I can understand how some parents feel like, oh, I'm taking this away from my kids, like the innocence of movies or whatnot. And we've talked about this on several different aspects, not just a grooming thing. we are getting to a point in time where you either have to make yourself uncomfortable or the system will make you uncomfortable. And is it going to be hard to rip your kids from maybe the standard of what all their friends in school see, where they do go see these Disney movies, where they do go to the parks, and you're going to have to be the bad parent. But at some point, you either start making yourself uncomfortable or the system will. Do you want to be the parent that keeps your kid from Disney movies and eventually maybe has a pissed off 6-year-old every time that a new release comes out? Or do you want to be the parent that now has a gender confused 11-year-old because they've been pumped in with this confusion? It's pure confusion.
It's demonic.
It is like the sheer idea that you're going to tell an innocent child that they are imperfect in their entire God-given creation at the age of 6, 7, 8, at any age. If you are a grown adult who comes to the conclusion that you feel like you're misplaced, I am no one to tell you how to live yourself, knock yourself out. I hope that you do the proper research, because we know that detransitioning is a real thing. We'll talk about
that a little later. I just want to point out something really quickly along with the headlines of Disney that I just presented. Also, Disney vows to help Democrats repeal Florida's anti-grooming law bill. So now Disney, who's a private company, and again, what I always say, conservatives are okay to live under corporate fascism. Yeah. They love it. Oh, it's a private company, like less government. It's like, dude, these companies like Disney, that they have so much power, right, are now talking about, we're going to help the Democrats repeal this law,
because they're an arm and an extension of the Democratic Party.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? So this is what I say. Who would have thought? They love Americans and conservatives. They love living under corporate fascism. They'll sit here and shit on every single dictator in the world. Putin did this one did that, this guy. It's like, guy, you live in a similar situation
with the illusion of freedom,
right? Where a private corporation like Disney is basically going to say, listen, I don't believe in we the people. You don't believe in the Florida Constitution.
We don't believe in the officials that you elected. Right. We don't believe in the decisions that you made. You don't believe in we the people. You don't believe in it.
You believe in corporate fascism. So I am Disney, and I'm going to help one party repeal this very popular bill. Because let me tell you something. Where was I last week? I was with a Florida legislator last week. And I'm going to tell you something. A lot of the Democrat legislators behind closed doors supported the bill.
Of course.
Democrats, moderate Democrats in Miami, what do you think? Do you think that they want their children, especially Latino parents, to be indoctrinated with this ideology? No. In fact, that headline that you posted the other day about, is it too late for Democrats to save the Latino vote? Mm-hmm. It literally states there, Giancarlo Sopo, which worked for the Trump campaign for the Latino coalition or whatever, he literally states, the fact that the Democrats painted this evil picture of Ron DeSantis against this bill, it's going to work against them, because Latino people ain't about that.
Yeah, the Latino, we've discussed how the Latino vote isn't really cared for by either party, to be frank with you, either party. Yeah. But the truth is that the Democrats have done a disservice to themselves, and really the Republicans should be cutting them a check, because by fighting so hard against this common sense bill that for the most part, it's like, how can you attack a bill that only targets 4 through 8-year-olds? Yeah. By having this blatant attack, what it's done is that as the word continues to get out, because they're going out of their way to get the word out, and more Latinos become aware of what exactly is happening at these schools, they are going to drive the Latino vote further towards the Republican 100%. Party. Because what ends up, and we've said this before, what ends up happening is I always considered myself when I was a Democrat, I always considered myself a moderate. Me too. Always considered myself a moderate. And what I felt happened when I left the party was that I realized that things had become so extreme that I was told I could no longer have a moderate viewpoint.
Of course not, because now you're a Nazi.
because now I'm a Nazi. And when I saw it, it's like, wait a minute. So now you're making me pick between two extremes, which realistically speaking, the extreme right is what moderate, we would have called a JFK Democrat, back in the day. You're pushing people towards this other ideology because they cannot accept the extremism of where the left has gotten. Because how can you sit down and have a rational conversation with somebody that wants to argue with you about why they should be having secret conversations about sex and gender with 4 and 6 year olds? There's no way to defend that without completely exposing yourself as a groomer.
Even when they say, oh, what about those families? Those there's LGBT families now. There's kids with 2 moms and 2 dads. Okay. What is that population? It's literally less than 1%. And once again, the bill doesn't state that. If a kid comes to their 3rd grade teacher and says, my mom's, gave me this beautiful doll or whatever this weekend, nothing's going to happen to your child. Nothing's going to happen to the teacher. The teacher's not like, shh, don't talk about your 2 moms. It's not like that at all. They've made it that way. So
let's talk about the secrets that it actually protects. I've got a headline, right? So in the state of California, in the Los Angeles school district, there is headline reads, California Latina mom sues LA County schools for teen daughter's death. This story gets progressively worse.
We really dive deep into the story, and it's sad. It's something that more people should be talking about, and Bella's going to explain exactly what that is. But the bottom line here is that the state of California thinks that they own your children.
Absolutely. And if they feel like they don't have enough power over your children, like we see with this particular case. So this young woman was counseled, secret gender studies counseling, and amongst some of the advice that she got from her counselors. Now, here's the thing. She kind of transitions, starts going by a male name. Her mother tries to be as accepting as she possibly can as an immigrant and not really understanding this new culture, tries to be as understanding as she can about her daughter's situation. Clearly, transition was something that was a whole nother topic than just going by a different name. The school had involvement in coaching this girl.
It was a trans kid. It was a trans
within the same gender programs that coaches this young girl on how to basically seek emancipation from her mom so that she can become custody of the state
as a foster child
and have the state pay for her transition surgery that her mom would have otherwise not approved of. I mean, the saddest part about the story is clearly that this young woman is now deceased. She's no longer with us because she killed herself.
Right. I think that, one side of the story, which is, again, goes back to the Florida bill, is that, and it doesn't go far enough because even here, that person wouldn't be protected, right? Because she was already in high school. So she meets this trans kid, this trans teen at school. The girl apparently already had depression. We don't know if she was bullied. We don't know if, there's a lot of bullying going on. So we don't know what caused that depression. But then she makes a friend, trans kid, says, you know what, maybe you're just a boy. You're in the wrong body. And then they start attending this LGBT counseling or
that
groups,
they do
whatever.
Gender counseling.
With high school. And then she gets coached by the trans teen and her parents, or him or her parents. And to what you said, this is how you escape home and you become part of the LA foster care. And this is how they will be able to give you these hormone therapy or whatever it is for you to transition.
All things that this particular bill would have stopped, of course, not at that grade level, but that seeks to stop, which is these secret conversations where if a young adult is having questions about their gender or anything really at this point, because even the idea of a kid telling you I'm depressed as a 15 or 16 year old, a parent should have every right to know that.
That's something that the mom said, which is really sad.
How do I stop it as a parent? How am I given the opportunity to be there for my daughter and protect her if the school is robbing me of that opportunity by keeping what she's experiencing a secret from me?
Yeah. The mom, you could see text messages, and I guess we could pull some of those up, but the mom shows a lot of compassion and care and love for that child that is no longer living with her. There was this one instance when I think she texted her mom saying, "Mom, I gave my last meal to a pregnant girl." Maybe it was part of the foster children that she was with. And the mom says, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to Costco. I'm going to bring you all these food." And the girls, "I love you, Mom. I love you, daughter." This whole thing.
Right, because they paint the idea that the parents lack love for their children because they won't help them through these transition at a young age.
Right. And I believe she tried to commit suicide like twice before, and then the way that she ended up killing herself, she literally jumped in front of a moving train in LA.
So sad. It's so sad. And again, the saddest part about it is that there you have her mom who was supportive, who was loving, who was going to love her daughter unconditionally, regardless, just being a parent. And hold off. Like, why are these surgeries such a big deal at such a young age? Like,
again, it's the grooming and the indoctrination. So one thing that I want to point out for the people that may, we don't know who's going to listen to this, but if you are the type of person who disagrees with us and says, "I don't care, I will allow my 7-year-old to transition, I would allow my 10-year-old, it's the right thing to do." Even in that instance where you are actually pro-teen, gender-affirming care, you got to be careful because the state, look at what's happening to this young girl, that the state took a hold of her as a foster child and she still ended up dead. So even in the instance that you are against, our beliefs and say, I don't care, I'll give my girl, my 13-year-old hormone therapy or whatever it is. Dude, if you are in California and your kid decides to make up this whole story to run away from home, this could be you. This could be your child next.
Right.
It's very worrisome.
I think that it's the secrecy part of it, because you could be a parent that's accepting of it, but that doesn't mean that you get to impose your views on other people's children.
Right.
And then when you're creating these blanket rules that allow for secrets to exist between teachers and students, what if the secret doesn't have anything to do with the child's gender? Right. What if the secret has to do with the fact that your child was abused? Right. And now you as a parent have no way of knowing because the teachers kept this a secret because maybe they were abused by somebody of the same gender. And they feel like if they say something, they'll out the person. Parents shouldn't be kept in the dark over the difficulties that their children are facing. Right. And it's something that we see time and time again, where the education system continues to overstep their boundaries into thinking that they are co-parents for the students that attend their schools. Right. And that's just not the case. You are not co-parents. You are teachers that are with them to teach them basic skills in life, whether it be math and science and
reading,
civics. Can we discuss civics? Can we teach kids more civics and less gender? Can we teach them how this country is supposed to operate?
What about financial,
teach them how to balance a checkbook? I don't even think they have home ec in school anymore, where like you can teach them how to bake a pie. Like, these are all things that kids should be focused on. But no, we need to have several months and flags and pride parades and all these other things to celebrate what exactly? Because what are we celebrating? We're celebrating what it is that you choose to do with your body, and your personal time behind closed doors, and somehow that's supposed to elevate you to a position. I've always had a problem with pride. I want you to feel comfortable in who it is that you are, but pride, I'm prideful about my accomplishments, about doing a job well done, on my career, on graduating, on things. Those are things to be proud of. How I show up with my parents, how my parents raised me, things to be proud of. Who you have sex with is not something to be proud of. It's so weird. It's so weird. No different than somebody boasting about like going to bed with like a rich person or whatever. It's like, no one cares. Yeah. No one cares. You can live your life, and I want you to be proud. I want you to be able to exist as your LGBT self, loving whoever it is that you love. And I want you to be proud about who you are as a person, not I'm proud that I'm gay.
Right.
It seems like just such a watered down way of celebrating who you are as a person just because of your gender, sexuality.
It's just people that didn't get attention. honestly. And it's not everybody. I feel bad saying that. Like, you know, my lesbian cousins, they don't participate in Pride. I've never even seen them with a rainbow flag. And I'm not saying that everybody should be the same. I do think there's a lot of normal, you know, people in the LGBT community who want to be left alone. There's my friend and I had dinner last night, and we talked about somebody that she employs who's going through a transitioning. The only reason why she knows is because of the paperwork. Paperwork comes in, and this boy that's in her office has a girl's name, and she's like, holy crap. Like, you know, now I know that such person was really a woman. And the whole thing is that trans man doesn't want anybody else to know, because why should they? You know, that's who you are now, and that's who you know, they're not going around like wanting all this attention. So I think there's like, you know, obviously like differences in the community for sure.
We also talk about what the basic fear is, right? The basic fear is that we're putting children in vulnerable positions by having adults speak to them about topics that are sexual in nature. And we face a huge problem in this country, whether or not it's something that people want to write off as conspiracies, with pedophilia. It is it's an insanely big topic that we don't talk about enough.
And we're gonna talk about our new
pedo justice. She's Justice Pedo to me.
But before we go on, I just want to mention one more headline about the parents, which is the parents from Florida, the Perez family. And these parents are actually suing their school district here in Florida because they also, that school district was also grooming and coaching their little girl to change her gender. I believe the daughter also was like depressed or whatnot, and there were some secret conversations that happened in her school. And so the parents found out, and now they're part of a lawsuit against the district.
Their daughter tried to attempt suicide 2 times. And when the father went in to...
It's an elementary school student, by the way.
12 years old. The young girl is 12 years old. When the father went in to discuss, like, what is going on with my child, my suicidal 12-year-old, he is told that the daughter was attending gender studies, that the teacher, the counselor had been referring to the student by their new gender-specific name and pronouns.
Basically, one
correct.
At home and one in the school.
She was getting bullied in school because of this transition, and the school's reasoning for not telling her parents about her depression struggles was that he was a Catholic man, and because of his faith, that was...
Listen to the attack on faith. In this country.
This is the attack on God and on Christianity.
Warfare.
It's absolutely the part that it's spiritual warfare. They told this man that he did not have access to his daughter's private information that could have prevented her from maybe, I don't know, she didn't succeed, but she did attempt 2 different times.
Here, the suit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida, and claims that the daughter of Wendell Maria Perez, a 6th grade student at Patterson Elementary School in Fleming Island, Florida, had adopted a male transgender identity at school with the support of administrators who hid the girl's gender dysphoria from her parents. It was not until Perez's daughter, identified as AP in court filings, attempted to commit suicide on school grounds for the 2nd time in as many days that the Perezes were notified about their daughter's male gender identity.
And a secret.
So basically, after the 2nd suicide attempt,
is when they involve the parents.
Yeah.
And then their justification is, well, sorry, you believe in God.
Right.
So you didn't get access to your daughter's information that could have potentially prevented the potential suicide. But don't believe in God next time, and then maybe.
Yeah. So with that being said, we have a new SCOTUS judge. We have a new Supreme Court justice, actually from Miami, Florida.
I can't believe
we are
she's
definitely
from Miami.
Not proud to have this lady sitting on the Supreme Court. I'll be honest with you, this is probably the first time that I haven't tuned into a hearing confirmation. I usually like to just put it in the background. Well, you know, I did it for Kavanaugh, I did it for Barrett and stuff like that. And I just didn't even tune in. I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm sure she'll get confirmed. And like, who cares? Like, I'm sure even if they find the worst of her, they're still going to confirm him. And it's exactly like I expected. So she got confirmed yesterday.
Let's talk a little bit about her history. So one of the things that has been pointed out the most about Justice Pedo, I refuse to call her by anything other than that, is her leniency against child predators. And she has a long history. In fact, every single case of child pornography that passed through this judge was her ruling over these cases was severely lenient compared to standard congressional.
Well, no, standard prosecutors.
Correct. A standard and prosecution. What do they call?
Recommendations.
Recommendations, right? Because they call them recommendations. Yeah. Every single last case that went by her desk, she gave a sentence that was less than the significantly less than the recommendation. There's one particular case that was brought up during her confirmation. And it involves a man that was caught with several images of child pornography.
Videos, right?
And, yes, engaging. And we're talking about childs between the ages of
some that were toddlers.
8, 9, 10, and 12. I know there was more than one case. Yeah. In this particular case, she basically made the argument that the rule right now, recommendations, is based off each count has its own basically sentencing, if you will. So the amount of child pornography that this man was caught with, we're talking about a recommendation of 10 years in jail. Her recommendation was 3 months because she felt that the prosecutor recommendation, congressional normal standard kind of way of handling it was outdated, according to her. What is it exactly that's changed that now makes pedophile laws outdated? And what does that have to do with the grooming push that we see right now?
Yeah, that's what she said. She says she believes sentencing guidelines in child pornography cases are outdated because they derive from a time before the internet when offenders would have to receive each image of a child's sex abuse through the mail. So basically, she's just basing this on the internet.
Just how the easy accessibility of the internet now means that you shouldn't get charged for every instance because you're able to download a lot more images faster, and therefore you shouldn't be punished for each picture because now you have access to so many more pictures.
She also apologized. Like I don't remember which case, but she apologized to one of there was like a younger guy involved, right? And she apologized, like, oh, I see your family's here in your sentencing, and I'm so sorry for what you've been through and like what your family has been through, and like what are you doing apologizing to literal pedophiles?
I mean, what can we possibly expect from a woman that was asked, how do you define a woman? And she said,
and she also doesn't believe in natural rights, which is literally part of our Constitution. So I don't even know how this woman got a law degree to begin with. But with that being said, we forgot something very important, that goes along with the insanity of the White House, the groomer in chief, which is that last week was Trans Visibility Day or something like that. Yet another one of the visibility, 1,000. We have like 1,000 LGBT
well, now we've got 2 whole months. They took Hispanic Heritage Month and turned it into LGBT recognition.
Right. Yeah. So now the White House came out with Joe Biden actually recorded the whole thing. It was pretty disturbing.
It's so blasphemous.
Of him saying that trans people are made in the image of
God. Trans
children are made in the image of God. It's like, okay, whatever that means. But with that being said, they also put out a statement of how they support gender affirming surgeries for children. And what are these gender affirming surgeries or procedures for children? Some of them are as invasive as top surgery, which is the removal of perfectly healthy breast tissue from teens, right?
I mean, puberty blockers that would stop the prevention of full development. Therapy,
like, this is where we are.
Let's talk about how messed up this is. Have you ever been on birth control? Do you know how crazy hormones will make you? They will turn you into a literal different person. And we are pumping children with this. These are things that already make a rational, functioning adult woman act erratic. It could lead to depression. It could lead to hormonal imbalances that make you feel sad. And we are pumping kids up with hormones that are clearly going to have some form of psychological, forget people calling them the bullies. No, we're talking about a biological response that they're going to have of taking all of these hormones that are going to change the makeup of how their little parts are working, on what makes them sad. First of all, being a teenager alone is already such a hormonal experience.
Very intense time.
You're already sad. You already think everybody's trying to get you. It's you against the world.
It's really bad. I do want to say something that may not be very popular, but it is a theory that me and Anthony share, which is that this SCOTUS nomination and confirmation is nothing more than a debt that the Democrats and Biden are paying to Black women. Because if you remember, when the 2020 election happened and Joe Biden was confirmed as president, they literally had headlines, which you pull them up right here, just a few of them, of Black women help win the election. Black women help win the 2020 election. Black women put Biden in the White House.
What is the voting bloc demographic? What percentage do Black women make up of the voting bloc demographic?
Literally like 6.5%.
Wow, that's a really small percent.
And not
to
every
alter whole
election. And let's be honest, not all 6.5% can even vote. So
and the ones that do not all voted for Joe Biden.
So we saw a lot of.
So what did he mean exactly?
What did the media mean by that? And now, this is basically the debt that they're paying back for helping them secure the bag. And that's what I wanted to say about, about the SCOTUS. I also wanted to show our audience, and I don't know if you've seen them. Have you seen this? TikTok today on Libs of TikTok, whatever. They just posted a video from TikTok promoting top surgery for teens and women and young women.
Is it like an ad on TikTok?
I don't think it's
like one of the pushed recommended
it's a whole video. We'll play it right now you'll see of just different people who have gotten top surgeries and saying that everybody can get it, and it's just the weirdest thing that I've ever seen, and I can't believe I'm living in this timeline. We'll just
welcome to the clown world, ladies and gentlemen.
Let it play real quick.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but top surgery is for anybody. There's no template for what you must look like after top surgery. What makes life so beautiful is the diversity in its people, and those who are post-op top surgery are no different. Top surgery isn't limited to one gender, one expression, one style. It is not limited to one ethnicity, one culture, one race. It's not limited to one shape or size. Those who are post-op have just as much variety as the rest of the world. Some choose nipples, some don't. Some have straight scars, some have curved scars, some have no scars. Some of us are feminine, some of us are masculine, some of us are androgynous. The only one thing that we all truly share is freedom and joy.
And with that being said, I did want to quickly talk about Detransition Day, which I didn't know about until I ran into the hashtag on Twitter. And I ran into a bunch of tweets from women and men who transition into another gender, and now they're detransitioning. And it's really, really sad because some of these, young people altered their bodies, and they're going through a painful detransition experience right now.
And what's really sad about it is these people are getting silenced.
They are.
They're not allowed to exist on social media. In fact, we posted about it last year for Detransition Day. You and I both posted about it on Telegram, and we got attacked by local Antifa, aka related to local government. Democrats, we see you. School board, we see you. Antifa attacked us for simply reposting a detransition testimony from a person who detransitioned. Now, these people, they're not just dealing with the clear now biological response that their body has to go through to detransition back into the gender assigned at birth. Now we're talking about these people getting canceled
Right.
They want them silenced. They call them haters.
Mafia.
By the LGBT community,
mafia.
Accusing them of simply looking out for clout from the Republicans, or, oh, you're just looking for attention, or you know that that's not true. You're just an actor. These people are being actively silenced for speaking out. And it's like, this new practice of transitioning kids isn't something that has been going on for a long time. This is brand new. We have no idea what the repercussions of this are going to look like 10 years down the line. We have no idea how many kids we're going to have that are dealing with some kind of mental health issue because they were allowed to make this very permanent decision at an age where everything is transitional to some extent.
Yeah. People should look into the hashtag.
And, you know, I think that a really important note to end the podcast in, because I know we could talk about groomers for literally forever because they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
But a really important thing is to highlight the legislators that are putting in legislation forward, like the HB 1557. We have two local reps, David Borrero and Juan Barquin, that worked with Anthony Sabatini to present HB 1557. People do not realize how important legislators are to stopping this.
State legislators.
The Democrats know this, by the way. The Democrats know who to pressure and who to present legislation to. And the idea is that a lot of these reps, the good ones that are on our side, sometimes will present amazing bills that don't even make it to vote and are killed in committee. And the reason why they can continue to get away from that, can continue to get away with that, is because those state reps are not being held accountable by we the people. I think it's so important to understand that it's probably going to come up 100 times in our podcast because there's not enough action from people to recognize that Ron DeSantis cannot make decisions over the state of Florida by himself. He needs a governing body in order to do that.
Yeah, well, he's not the king of Florida,
unfortunately.
Right? So, you know, this was a great conversation, I think, today about the groomers. And with that being said, we highly suggest that you look into parent organizations like Moms for Liberty, who are growing so much. I mean, they're exploding nationwide
and are doing so much to fight.
The headlines are they're fighter moms and dads as well. So we highly encourage you to seek community and support so that you can stay present in your child's life and education.
Get involved. Is this thing on? Get involved. Get involved. Have a say. Do not let these private institutions like teachers' unions influence what's going on in schools while you remain silent and hope that someone somewhere is doing the right thing.
Because they're not.
Because they're not. This is where we're at. Yeah. And I think that wraps up episode 2, guys.
Episode 2. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you next week.